Hello. Today I have a second extract from logbooks of Pat Eadie, a coaster that flew high. Now, Pat's mum was Josie Eadie. She began life looking after her three young brothers, that's Paddy, Hugh and Jack, following the death of their mother in 1915, and helped manage the Blanchfield Bakery in Greymouth before she married Jack Eadie in 1931. They moved into their new home in Joyce Crescent, Greymouth, in 1939. There were 6 kids: Anne, Marion, Brenda, Don, Tony and Pat, a captain with British Airways. This is a story from Pat. A valley too far. In nomine Patris were the last words formed in the brain of Larry Zambezi. It is impossible to know, you may say, but I have been to that point when every physical parameter spells the end. Larry had been there before, and in our younger days we had laughed about it. Larry had that happy knack of making the impossible seem highly likely. In every calling, particularly in the mode of aviation, one can learn much from others, perhaps more from shared personal experiences than can be gleaned from textbooks. Larry propped himself against the hangar door, sunning himself and surveying his Oster aircraft. This unpretentious silver high-wing monoplane, stationary and harmless on the tarmac, had him redefining his luck versus ability. He captured me goggle-eyed. I have just flown in from Blenheim, where I have been doing a top-dressing stint. I have this thing about valleys, Pat. Got fogged in when slipping through the Wairau Valley and had a hell of a job sneaking through to Murchison. From there, the weather opened, and it was CAVOK, clear air visibility okay. Then I nearly got caught in the Grey Valley, just south of Dobson, with a height to marginally clear the bridges, within sight of Greymouth. I knee-jerked into consciousness again. The sun blazing through the perspex canopy can be very soporific. I see the electric cables strung across the river. At the centre, they're only 50 feet above the surging Grey River. In a flash, I have to decide, do I go over or under? In a valley at 40 feet above the water, there is no horizon for the brain to register whether you are above or below an object, where your height in relation to it is critical. If the cables are just below you, then you could miss them by doing nothing. If you pull the nose up harshly to give an increased separation, then the cables can slice off your tail. The first movement in pulling the stick back is to lower the tail, and then the wires could act like a giant blade and sever the tail from the fuselage. Thereby, you are dead. Should the wires be marginally above, and you repeat the earlier action, the propeller will carve into them, having the same end result. If the cables look to be on your level, firstly, pray. As you say in nomine Patris, push the nose down and aim to go under them, even if the chances of swiping the water also presents another obstacle. At least that could be a second later, and each second is precious. It takes a brave pilot to go under the wires, approaching at 120 miles an hour. I pushed the nose down, having started in nomine Patris. Feeling only a small bump passing the cables and managing within the next second to pull up and miss the water, I cut short the prayer with Deo gratias. The static balance is missing from the rudder. One of the cables sheared it off. I can't get much closer than that. Strangely enough, the only disciplinary hearing I had in the RNZAF concerning flying a DC-3 up a valley. Weaving through the gorge at Balclutha, well below the hilltops, I came across a bridge, ahead of me by half a mile and just under my height. Those standing on the bridge reckoned I scared the wits out of them. They didn't ask me how I felt suddenly confronted with a massive iron structure strung across the valley. Fortunately, that time being marginally above it, a sudden application of power and a gentle pullback cleared it. By how much, I daren't think. A steep climb I couldn't risk, for fear I would leave the tailplane behind in the bridge. Then they would have had something to tell their friends about. More than 6 years later, I experienced the same predicament at Dobson. The same cables across the grey river filled my windscreen. I went under them as I recited the words In nomine Patris. Having got away with a narrow escape, missing the wires, I concluded my phrase with Deo gratias. I could say that, unwittingly, Larry had saved my life. I'm looking forward to reading some more stories next Thursday. Cheerio.